Hi everyone, this is Sam here, a current college student at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Welcome to my podcast, College Conscience, where we talk about the good, the bad, and everything in between with the college experience. With each episode, I focus on a different topic pertaining to college life with a different friend, and I really want to hear their perspectives and see what advice they have for me and anyone who might listen about that specific topic. Some examples include health and wellness, academics, professional career, exploration, and even more. So if you're interested in any of those topics, please stick around and hear what my friends have to say. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it and super excited to talk to you about
Of course.
exploring
Mm-hmm.
and probably not just DC, but also Virginia and Maryland, the
Right.
DMV as we
Mm-hmm.
know
That's what they
it.
call it.
That is what they call it. And with this topic, I was curious to just hear your initial thoughts, like, especially as a student at Georgetown, like, how does one explore the DMV?
Yeah, I think there are multiple ways to explore. And I think when you're in such a walkable and accessible city like DC, a student definitely has to take advantage of all the opportunities that DC offers. So I think there are a multitude of ways to explore DC. My favorite is by foot. I think DC is a super walkable city. Everywhere is super accessible. Nowhere is too far of a walk. I guess it depends on your personal appetite for distance. But as a person who grew up in Houston, nothing is too far in DC because Houston is simply huge. I think the second way to explore DC is through the metro. The DC Metro, surprisingly, unlike other American cities, is actually, in my opinion, more reliable and more clean. That being said, Georgetown doesn't really have accessible metro stations, so we have to kind of take the bus to Virginia and then ride the metro into other, DC destinations, which is a little bit of a roundabout way to explore DC. But all of my, experiences on the metro have been good. The third and final way is through Uber. But I think Uber is obviously very expensive sometimes, and the prices can definitely vary. The good thing about Uber is that it can take you to wherever you want, to literally the footsteps of wherever you want. And it's super easy to use, and it's available basically 24/7. So I think, the three ways I like to explore DC is by foot, by metro, and also through Uber.
Wow, that's definitely a bunch of different ways. I'm sure biking is also in there in the
Yes.
mix with
Uh-huh.
Capital Bike Share and Lime
Yes,
Bike and
yeah, and
scootering.
scooters,
Lime
yes.
bikes and scooters, you definitely will see that around.
hmm
I'm curious, like, how does where you want to explore change based on like morning, afternoon, night? Like, what's a good place to explore in the morning, like near the beginning of the day versus like end of the day? Like, how does that
Oh,
change?
that's a good question. So, I think, well, personally, I'm a very late riser. So when I wake up, it's like already 10 a.m. But when I do get the chance to wake up early, I think I usually like going to places that are a little bit more quiet and a little bit more like nature oriented. I also enjoy like grabbing coffee or, tea at some, cute cafe and then walking to like a few nature spots. But when it turns kind of when it's darker or when it's like later on in the day, I prefer to go to like more like livelier places and places that have a little bit more buzz. Personally, my favorite neighborhood in DC is 14th Street. It's not a neighborhood, but my favorite area in DC is like 14th Street. And I think that strip just has so many nice shops, restaurants, and it's always buzzing. There's so much going on. And whether you're there to like shop, eat, or just like people watch to absorb kind of like the vibe, I think it's an amazing place to be. So,
Yeah, what have some of your recent experiences been either on the 14th Street Strip or other places that you feel like are memorable?
so in terms of recent experiences, 14th Street, let's see. So, the first time, well, the only time I went back since the beginning of school was with you, and we were walking back from like U Street, like the U Street area, And then we walked all the way down to like the 14th Street and like S and T area. And that was my first time back. Not a lot has changed, which is good because 14th Street was exactly how I remembered it to be
When was
like.
the last time before we went?
Oh, let's see. It would have to probably be in April.
Okay.
April or May.
Okay.
I think April. Yeah, 2022. So it's definitely been a while. So it was really glad to be back. All the restaurants were popping, like there was so much noise, there was so much like music. And even though I wasn't like a participant in all of that, I think it just felt really nice to like be part of kind of the atmosphere, and it just felt really nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know that when people come to DC, like the most eye-catching spots are, of course, the museums and monuments, given their both historical and current
Yes.
significance. And I was curious, like, what were your impressions of the museums and monuments you've been to so far? Like, they worth the hype? Are they overrated? Which ones are underrated? Like, what are your impressions so far?
Okay. I think unpopular opinion is that I think the museums and monuments in DC are a little overrated. I think they are very good one-time experiences, but once you go there there's really no purpose in returning. But I will still say like sometimes like monuments are like the monuments in DC are still very remarkable and very, they are good places to visit. I personally like the Lincoln Memorial, specifically the back of the Lincoln Memorial where you can see the Potomac River and you can see Roslyn,
Which is in Virginia.
which is in Virginia, correct. And I also really like it because you can see a sliver of Georgetown from the back of the Lincoln Memorial. And also, it's just less crowded at the back. And it's also cleaner. So the marble is actually more white, at the back of the
Good
Lincoln
for
Memorial.
pictures.
So it's good for pictures and it's less crowded. So I really like the Lincoln Memorial. The Washington Monument is like, of course, the most famous, but I really just like never understood like the point. Like I don't know, like when you get up close to the monument, it's just like, oh, I think the monument looks better when you're at the Lincoln Memorial or when you're just like in other parts of DC. Basically, the monument looks best everywhere else except for the monument itself. In terms of museums, I think the museum scene is great in DC. It's probably like one of the best museum networks in the world, and I should take more advantage of it. But as I'm not like the most patient person, so walking around museum can be a little bit grueling for me. But I really do like the Smithsonian Museum of American Art, which we also went to. They have a very nice courtyard with like a glass wavy ceiling, and it's really good for pictures.
Wow, that definitely will incentivize some people to go, I'm sure, as you talk to them about that. And I was also curious, going more into Virginia and Maryland, like what have been spots of interest that you've been to so far in those two states since they're so accessible from DC?
Yeah, I think there are. Are we talking Virginia only or Virginia and Maryland?
Virginia and Maryland,
Okay.
why not both?
Okay. So I guess let's start with Virginia. I think Virginia, there are three places. First is Roslyn, which is right across Georgetown. I really love how accessible it is to Georgetown. There is a bus system that also takes Georgetown students from the campus to Roslyn. And Roslyn essentially is like the de facto downtown of DC. Since DC doesn't have like tall buildings, Roslyn kind of fills that void. And it's a really nice office area and an urban area with nice cafes. And if you go deeper into Roslyn, there's one of my favorite restaurants, Pho 75.
What is Pho 75 for
Yes.
those who might not know?
So Pho 75 is just a restaurant that serves Vietnamese pho and pho only. It's a pretty old restaurant, but they serve just very fragrant and fresh pho.
And what is pho for some people who might not know?
Pho is Vietnamese rice noodles with broth. Okay, and usually the broth is probably made from like beef, and they just serve very traditional and very amazing broth and pho. But anyways, so Roslyn is home to one of my favorite restaurants, Pho 75. The second place is probably like Boston. Boston is a newer development in Northern Virginia. It's pretty close to Roslyn. It has like a pretty new mall. It has like a very like vibrant like shopping center. So it's like very young and hip. The third place is deeper into Northern Virginia, and this is where you get into the suburbs. But like Falls Church and honestly, like Falls Church, Fairfax, Annandale, like you can just group them together. They're hubs for Asian culture, and Georgetown isn't the most Asian place in the world. So going into those Northern Virginia suburbs is just simply amazing because you get to try a lot of authentic Asian food, get Asian groceries. So, going into the those places is always a treat.
Can you name a couple places in those areas you like really like to go to?
Yeah, so I think the first place is do you call it Eden Center or Eden?
It's Eden Center.
Okay, so Eden Center is basically a shopping center that is just like dedicated to like Asian that is just like dedicated to like Asian shops. It's probably dominated by Vietnamese stores, but there's a lot of boba there. They have very nice Vietnamese restaurants, and they have a really nice Asian grocery store that I went to a couple of weeks ago and got a lot of groceries from. Aside from that, there's also a really nice hot pot place there and a pretty decent Korean barbecue. So even though it's Vietnamese dominated, there's a range of, kind of Asian food and shops in the center.
Yeah, and what about Maryland? Any places of note?
Yeah, so Maryland I haven't been to as much just because it's not as accessible from Georgetown. But I think one of the nicest places in Maryland is kind of Rockville. And then the Rockville Town Center is nice. It's been a couple of times. They have a good matcha place. And it's also just a really nice walk in the night because it's like a town center, but it's also like pretty suburban. The second place I like is like Bethesda Row. It's also a town center, but it's like more high end. It has more high end stores. I remember going into holiday season, and the shops just had really high end like decorations and high end furniture. So I mean, it's not like I would buy any of those things, but like going to a upscale town center during the holiday season is definitely an experice. So
yeah, I remember also going to
yes.
Bethesda Row during the holiday season. So maybe we would have seen each other there.
Maybe.
Andrew definitely has a lot of great ideas and insights on how to get around the DMV. Now let's hear about a specific story when Andrew went into DC earlier this year and the fun adventure he had while on that trip.
So, yeah, this is easy. So I play the drums, and drums aren't really accessible at Georgetown, so I go to this place that has rentable rooms, and I just book a room, and then I just can play the drums for however long I want. The issue is that place is located in Capitol Hill. So for those who don't know, Georgetown is like on like the western end of DC, and Capitol Hill is like on the eastern end of DC. So it's like quite polar opposites. One time, I just took an Uber to kind of the place where I played drums. And I guess like it was like rush hour or something. I don't know. But like the Uber ride took 40 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, and like when we're talking distance, like Capitol Hill's not like that
like
far.
2 miles.
It's like 2 miles. Like even though it's on the other end, DC is tiny, right? So like with like perfect traffic, I would say it would just take like 15 to 20 minutes. But the Uber ride took 40 minutes because of the traffic.
Right.
So I was late to the appointment, but I still played the drums. And then after I played, it was around dinner time, and I wasn't about to Uber because of that experience. So I was just like, okay, like I'm just going to walk to like somewhere to get dinner. And then I walked, on like New York Avenue, and then I walked, and I think I walked until the intersection of New York Avenue and Ninth Street.
Yeah.
You know where I'm talking about,
Mm-hmm.
like the Safeway,
Yeah.
the Sweet
The
Green,
PwC
the
building.
PW. Yeah,
Yeah.
that area. So that walk was like 15 minutes and was not bad. And I got dinner, and then I ate something, and then I was like, oh, like I'm feeling very energetic. I'm just gonna walk until like
The
I'm
power of sweet green to
yeah.
you.
Stop.
Andrew's a very big sweet
Yeah.
green fan.
Yes, to be specific, I had sweet green. I had sweet green tonight too. So after dinner, I was just like, oh, like I'm feeling energetic. I don't really feel tired. Why not just walk until I'm tired?
Right.
So I walked all the way back to Georgetown.
Wow.
Um, you know, with like AirPods in my head, in my ears, and it was just like very vibey. And like the entire walk probably took like, I don't know, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, but I didn't feel tired at all. And that just goes to show how walkable DC is.
Yeah.
And there's always stuff to see along the way, so like time passes by really quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And I hope other people can get lost in DC in a good way. Don't actually get lost, because
Yes.
the roads will definitely confuse you if you are prone to getting lost, but lost in a
Yes.
good way. So, Andrew definitely walked a lot that day, and he probably will be walking more in the future. Now let's hear about what Andrew still wants to explore as he continues his time at DC.
So, besides physical exploration, one thing that I wish I did more was kind of explore in terms of, my career, and explore different opportunities that are unique to DC. Personally, I'm like a business student, so I have no interest in politics or going into politics. But DC is like kind of like, DC is the capital of the U.S. and the U.S. is very, very important internationally. So DC might very well be like the capital of the world, right? And a lot of important decisions are made here. So at the beginning of my college career, I kind of just wrote off politics as something that I didn't want to do and I didn't want to pursue. But, after a few conversations, with like my parents, they told me that like, okay, like, do you realize like how unique, being in DC is? Like, I think you need to pursue something that is unique to DC, because a lot of the business stuff that you're in, you can frankly do anywhere else. And my mom told me, like, I know you don't want to go into politics, but just try something. Get a House internship or a Senate internship just for fun, right? Like, a few years down the line, you'll be able to tell people you had this experience, and nobody else would have had the same experience as you, even if you, didn't end up in politics. And, upon parents are often right, unfortunately. And, upon reflection, I think she was right. Like, I think I need to take advantage of DC specific opportunities. And that meant like, a lot of like political opportunities. So besides physical exploration, moving forward, I really want to explore kind of opportunities that are available within, government departments. I would love to intern for a House representative, in the Houston area. Probably not my district, because my representative is a little crazy, but other districts in Houston, or I can intern for like an Asian American representative or an Asian American senator. I think that would be really meaningful, or I can intern for like the executive department. So maybe I can pursue a White House internship. Maybe I can pursue an internship at the Department of State. I know they have a specific branch focused on like Asian American affairs, or like, and they have like a branch that deals with like China, I think, like specifically. So I think, even though like I'm not going into politics, there are always ways to like bridge my background with politics. And since I am in DC, I think I will definitely take advantage of the political opportunities that are available to me, because once I begin my career, I'm obviously not going to do it.
Right. No, that's awesome. And I wish you all the best of luck as you pursue those opportunities.
Thank you.
And last question, just going off of what we've been talking about, exploration, what you hope to do more of, what advice would you give to other kids of our age who say they want to get into DC, like Explore DC, but they just haven't quite done it yet. And besides the obvious answer of like to start, like
Yeah.
what are you thinking of how you would be able to help these people who are trying to explore DC and the DMV more?
Yeah. I was about to say, just do it. Like,
Besides that, I mean, that's
yeah.
very important. But besides that,
But I do
besides
think,
that.
like, once you take that first step, once you take that initiative, it's really easy to, continue doing the same. So
What was that first step for you?
let's see. I think that first step for me was during summer last year, so summer 2021. For background, I was online the first year of college, and then Georgetown had a summer program where they invited all of the people who had school online to be on campus during the summer for around 5 weeks. So we would, we like took classes during those 5 weeks, but it was obviously a very like free time, so I got to explore a lot. And the first day I went to the monuments, and I went to like different places like Union Market, DuPont Circle, blah 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 blah. So that was the first step for me. But yeah, I would really encourage people to take the first step, even though it might be hard. Yeah, like you're busy. Yes, home is very comfortable, but there's so much out there. So take that first step. But of course, Sam isn't looking for that advice. Something else I would say is that I think always like get a group of friends to do the same with you. You're always more motivated when you have people who are similarly motivated. So assemble a group of friends, talk about where to go, and go on a journey with them. It'll be fun. And I think secondly, I would say compile like a list of places you want to try, and have a checklist. And there's something like the psychology of checklists is always very interesting because it just incentivizes you to like check them off, and hopefully that incentivizes you to like go out and explore different places. Personally, I have a laundry list of restaurants I want to try in my notes app, and I'm actively trying to like check them off. So I would encourage people who are starting this journey to do the same. And let's see.
And some of those restaurants are very expensive. I would like to make that clear.
Some of those restaurants are very expensive. Not all of them are practical, but they are aspirations.
But that's okay.
Yes.
Sometimes we also go to the expensive ones.
Yeah, exactly. And my last piece of advice would be to familiarize yourself with the geography of DC and the transportation systems in DC. It's always easier to explore somewhere if you're just like familiar with the geography. Like DC is on a grid system, but the roads are just a little confusing sometimes. So in your free time, just like go on your phone and like look at Google Maps and just look at DC beyond Georgetown or beyond where you're staying, and you'll find a lot just on Google Maps. And familiarizing yourself with different bus lines that are available and metro lines that are available will definitely help you feel more confident when you're exploring, because I would say one of the biggest deterrents to exploring a new place is unfamiliarity with a place, with a destination's like transportation and geography. So do your best to familiarize yourself, and it'll give you confidence to explore.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Andrew, so much for being here, giving your time, giving your thoughts. I'm sure that'll help a lot of people who listen. And best of luck with exploring. I'm sure you have. Thank you. I'm sure you've inspired a lot of people today. Hopefully. And I will be seeing you very soon because this is a college podcast. So, like, we all live very close to each other.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for checking out that episode of College Conscience with my guest. If you want to see or hear more episodes, go visit College Conscience on Spotify, where I'll upload new episodes every Monday and Thursday. Thanks for listening.